This is English Conversation for Beginners. Today, in this lesson, we are going to study greetings. And of course, first of all, I want you to know that there are two types of greetings: formal greeting and informal greeting. Formal greeting is when you greet someone who has a high position, someone like a professor, someone like a manager, someone like a president, a minister, someone who is higher than you in their levels and in their positions. Here, in this case, you are going to greet these people using formal greeting. Otherwise, if you're greeting your friend, one of your family members, anybody who you have a friendly relationship with, you can greet them using informal greeting. So there is a dialogue here. I want you to listen to it carefully, and then we are going to break it down and explain the words that have been mentioned here in this dialogue.
Introductions and small talk. Formal greetings.
Good morning, Professor Austin. How are you doing?
Good morning, James. I'm doing well. And you?
I'm great, thank you. This is my friend Emma. She is thinking about applying to this college. She has a few questions. Would you mind telling us about the process, please?
Hello, Emma. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm more than happy to speak with you. Please, stop by my office next week.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Professor. Thank you so much for helping us.
Don't mention it. Hopefully, I will be able to answer your questions.
Okay, we have listened to the dialogue. First of all, notice that the student used good morning. Good morning is a phrase that we use when we are greeting someone in a formal greeting. How are you doing? How are you doing? Of course, how are you doing means how do you do? It means how are you? When you're greeting someone like that, or when you're greeting someone in a whether formal or informal greeting, you can ask them, how are you doing? Or you can ask them, how do you do? Or you can ask them, how is it going? Or you can ask them, how are you? Of course, these are called alternatives. I want you, every time you greet someone, use different phrase. This way, you're going to enrich your language and become professional. You see, the problem is that most students who learn English, they use the same phrase every time they greet someone, which seems a little bit boring. You have to change it, okay? You can say, how are you? Or how are you doing? Or how do you do? Or how is it going? Or what's up? There are a lot of phrases in English language you can use. The professor said, good morning, James. I'm doing well. And you? Of course, I'm doing well is the answer to the question, how are you doing? You can say, I'm doing well. I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. I'm doing okay. I'm doing fantastic. Or you can take the word doing out of, the phrase. You can say, I am great. I am fine. I am well. I am okay. You see, the answer, just like we have learned that there are alternatives when it comes to questions, there are as well alternatives when it comes to answer to the question. So you have to, every time use a different word, different phrase to answer the question when somebody asks you about how you do or how you are doing. This is my friend Emma. She is thinking about applying to this college. She has a few questions. Would you mind telling us about the process, please? You see, there is some sort of using polite ways and using polite words and phrases to ask questions. This is very important. When you want someone to do something, you can ask them, but you have to ask them politely. Like, would you mind telling us about the process, please? Especially the word please. Whenever you want someone to do something for you, you have to use the word please. The word process. Okay, here is a pronunciation check. Pronunciation check. A lot of people and a lot of students pronounce it process. Process. In the American accent, this word is pronounced process. 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 Okay? You do a lot of pronunciation so that you become able to master it and pronounce it exactly the way American people do. And the professor said, "Hello, Emma. It's a pleasure to meet you." Of course, it's a pleasure to meet you. The word pleasure includes SU, and SU as a combination of two letters, they have one sound. SU gives you one sound, which is ja, ja. Sometimes it gives you the sound sha, like the word sure, sure, sure. But here, the sound is ja, not sha. That's why we say it's a pleasure, pleasure, pleasure to meet you. So when someone introduces themselves to you, you can tell them it's a pleasure to meet you, or you can say it's nice to meet you, or you can say I'm happy to meet you, or these are alternatives as well to show that you appreciate the fact that someone introduced themselves to you and you're happy to meet them. So this is a typical phrase that people use when meeting someone and introduce themselves, or someone else being introduced to you. Okay? It's a pleasure to meet you. I am more than happy to speak with you. This as well is a very good phrase you can use. Stop by my office next week. Stop by my office next week. The word stop by means visit. Okay? Stop by my office next week, it means visit my office next week. So these are, I'm only telling you to, have some sort of alternatives. You don't just use the same word, the same phrase, the same sentence, the same clause every time you talk. That way you will never sound professional. But when you use different phrases, different sentences, different vocabulary, like the word stop by instead of the word visit, that way you seem to be professional. And not only that, you also enrich your language. She said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Professor. Thank you so much for helping us." He replied saying, "Don't mention it." Don't mention it is a phrase, or a phrase means you are welcome. So when someone says to you, when someone tells you something and you want to tell them you're welcome, you can say, don't mention it. This don't mention it means you are welcome. He only said don't mention it because he is a professor, he is a Native American, so that he uses different, phrases and different idioms and different vocabulary, and I want you to do the same. When someone tells you something and you want to tell them you're welcome, you can say you're welcome, but you can also say don't mention it. That way you sound professional. He said, hopefully I'll be able to answer your questions. So this is formal greeting, dialogue 1, and I hope you really enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.